Welcome to Happy Hour Conversations podcast, where we normalize hard, emotional, and raw conversations, such as grief, infertility, mental health, menopause, and all other sister-friend talks, sprinkled with a lot of laughter for the soul. We encourage our community to focus on areas of growth, becoming a better version of self each day, and exercising in faith over fear. As we redefine ourselves as life shifts and we rearrange the puzzle pieces. I am your girl, Tamekia R. Moon, and in this first season, we are focusing on grief, a journey that we will experience but rarely discuss and normalize our feelings. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on IG at Happy Hour Conversations Podcast. Before we jump into the episode, let me share this week's affirmation. I am forever grateful for the responsibilities as a woman. I will serve this title and duty well. As I flourish, I promise to also serve and cater to the little girl within and let her come out for recess and play. Staying in tune with my inner child is good for my soul. Let's jump into the episode. Thank you for coming on to Happy Hour Conversations.
Thank you for having me.
I am your host, Tamekia, and I'm excited to be here with Devon. So we're going to let Devon introduce herself. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Devon Riggins. I am originally from Columbus, Ohio. Spent some time in Nashville, Tennessee. Single child. Work in middle management. I have two teenagers. One young adult. I should say I have two kids, one young adult, one teenager, senior getting ready to graduate, and the young adult is getting ready to relocate to Nashville, Tennessee. So a lot going on.
So you about to be an empty nester.
I know, and I'm excited. I can't wait to kick that last one out.
Don't smile so hard. You're smiling really hard. All right. So this season we are talking about grief.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple months ago, you and I were talking and you shared a story with me. And I was like, okay, you have to come on and share this story.
Yeah.
And so what you shared was that your mom passed when you were 15 months.
18 months.
18 months. 18 months. Okay. Can you elaborate
18
more?
18 months. So the story goes that, my mom went into the hospital and it was all of the sudden, and she passed away. And what has been interesting about this journey is that I've just recently been in a position to talk to my dad about her transition and about their life prior to the transition.
Wait, so you all never talked about your mom's transition?
My father,
until recent?
Just recently, 2 Sundays ago to be exact. My father now comes over every Sunday for coffee. He's been doing that since the pandemic. And yeah, I just feel like this is our time. This is my time to get as much information from him as possible, because he was not that, his position in my life as my dad has always been that of a provider.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that he loved me beyond, life itself, but he was not the one that you could go sit and have a conversation with. He was always working. He was always doing something. So, it was more or less because of my mom's passing. I think he relied on those people around him to raise me. But I knew that he was always there for me. So I didn't necessarily live with him.
Okay.
Growing up.
Okay. So when you were younger, so you said you just recently had a conversation with your dad.
Just recently.
So when you were younger, you didn't even know how and why your mom had passed?
No, it was definitely not until, I would probably say my teenage years. And I don't even remember who told me. I don't think it was my dad, because he didn't raise me. It could have been my aunt, her sister, that told me that she passed from leukemia. But yeah, I just recently had the conversation with my dad. And I basically asked him, tell me what happened um, before mom passed. Like, what was going on? You know, did she become sick? Like, how did all of that transpire? And he basically said to me that prior to my birth, my mom was pregnant and the child only lived hours. It was a male child.
Okay.
Then she became pregnant again with me, and I survived. Shortly after me, she was pregnant again, and that fetus was stillborn. She miscarried. And so he said to her after that, no more. We're not going through this no more. You need to go get fixed. And he said it was a difficult conversation. She was heartbroken because she wanted more kids. And in the midst of her going to the doctor to say, you know, I want to be fixed, is when they discovered that she was sick with leukemia. And he said pretty much after they diagnosed her is when it just went downhill from there.
Oh, wow.
And I think she was 26 and he was 27 when she transitioned. Yeah, 27 years old. And he said that he was not at the hospital. He received a call from my aunt, and my aunt said that her heart had stopped by the time he got to the hospital because he was at work. She was gone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's
been a long
It's
journey.
been a journey. It really has. It really has. So as a child, because I didn't know, you know, everything behind the story of why she was no longer here, there was really no grieving. Because how do you really, as a child, grieve somebody that no one is really talking about? Like, I didn't know anything about her.
So you were in a situation where your family was like, okay, she's lost her mom, but we need to make sure she knows her mom. So it wasn't like it was tons of pictures around of your mom.
Because I do remember as a child, like 5 or 6, I do remember I was living with my grandparents, which were her parents. And I don't necessarily remember a lot of pictures around the house. I remember a picture, and I have that picture today.
Did your grandparents talk about it?
I don't really remember that. Okay. But I'm going to tell you, my memory is not good.
Okay, so. Fair. Especially at this great age in life.
Right. My memory is, so, you know, I'm like 5 or 6, and then something happened. Something transpired between my grandparents and my father, and that's when he moved me to Nashville, Tennessee to live with his sister. And I lived there for 5 years.
Okay.
And of course, she didn't talk at all about my mom. My dad just recently told me that my mom, because my father and his family are originally from Louisville, Mississippi. My dad travels to Mississippi quite often, 2 or 3 times a year. It's nothing for him to go down there and be there for 30 days. And during this time that we've had together, he told me that my mom had never went to Mississippi with him. He said that he never wanted to take her and endanger her life because of what was going on in the South at that time. And, you know, something transpired and he's worried about her safety. So he always went back home by himself. So my aunts on, you know, my father's side, they don't know anything about my mom. So, yeah, she wasn't talking about her during that time I was in Nashville.
Wow. So when did you realize, because that's 18 months, 18 months, you lost your mom. And then, you know, that's a generation that did not talk.
Absolutely.
They did not talk. Mm-hmm. They still don't talk.
They still do not talk.
But when did you realize like grief was a thing? Like, how did you know, or how did you identify with grief?
Oh my goodness. I did not realize I was grieving until I was married. I was married. And it was at the beginning of the marriage. But dealing with being a newlywed and trying to figure out life and trying to find a real job. And it was just a lot going on. And at that moment, I became angry because I felt in life at that time I didn't have anybody who I could talk to that really understood what I was dealing with.
And did you know where the anger was coming from, or that's when you started realizing?
No.
Okay. So you didn't know where to place the anger. You just knew you had this anger.
I was angry because I felt alone. Even though my father remarried, the lady that, he remarried, she did take the place in my life as a mother figure. Mm-hmm. She was in my life at an early age. I was probably 6 or 7 where her and my father connected. But they didn't get married until my senior year. But once I graduated high school, the relationship that her and I had shifted because now I'm grown. And she didn't know how to deal with that, so she backed off.
Did she have kids herself, or were you
I was the only one. So, now I'm independent. I don't really need you like that. But then when I did need her, she just wasn't present. She just didn't know how to be present. Okay. So I began to have a lot of anger about, why am I here? This is not a good life. Like, this is not a happy life. I should be happy and content. I'm newly married, and that began the journey of grief, of dealing with it and trying to identify that that's what it was. Mm-hmm. Trying to identify this is why you're angry all the time, because I really didn't know. My husband at the time, he would always ask me, like, why are you so angry? I don't know. I'm just angry. Yeah. I'm just pissed off.
Especially when nobody was talking about it.
Yeah.
And making you aware. And that's a long time. From 18 months to... was you in your 20s when you got married?
Yep. I was married at 23. So this was 24, 25. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go back to your dad's wife that he married. Would you have considered, because you said you were raised by different people, so would you have considered her like a mother figure, or is there somebody that you would have considered a mother figure?
It would have been her, because I ended up living with her my high school, all during high school. So I started living with her my freshman year. So until I graduated, her and I lived together. So it would have been her that I considered my mother figure. But, once I graduated and began to assert some independence, it's as if things fell apart. And what I thought I knew of her to be a mother figure, it didn't flourish in that direction.
Yeah.
So you begin to think to yourself, well, if she can't be the mother that I want, who's gonna fill that space? Who's gonna fill that void for me?
Yeah. So, all right. So let's get back. So, 18 months, your mom passed. Then, toddler to childhood, you're going through these stages of life, right? Mm-hmm. So you have your dad to identify with, but then you have your mom's parents as relates to grandparents, but there's still a piece of you that's missing. Mm-hmm. Did you deal with identity issues? And if you did, can you kind of walk us through that, like trying to figure out like who you were and who you looked like? Or do you just look like your dad and that's it?
Yeah, because everybody told me I looked like my dad. Okay. And because he was the only constant in my life, I didn't struggle with that because I knew he was his. I knew that I belonged to my dad. Okay. And so for me, it was, my name is Devon Coulter and my dad is Milton. And that was it. Okay. That was it for me.
Okay. So you didn't struggle. Okay. Maybe I should ask you this. Your dad's wife, did you call her mom? And did you ever? Okay.
Her name is Cindy.
Okay. So did you ever struggle with not being able to say the word mom or mother?
Mm-mm.
No?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay.
No.
So I asked that because just real quick, I shared that I didn't meet my dad till I was like 6. And even at 6 years old, I was just like, hey, why everybody around here saying daddy except for me?
Okay.
And so it's just, it's something that I recognized at 6. So it was just something that I wondered, if
And
you
probably
with
because
that.
I was the only child.
Okay.
Like if somebody else was around me saying those words, then
That would make
maybe I
sense.
probably would have been like, well, what does that mean? Well, why are you calling her that? But because it was just me in my space.
That would make sense. Okay.
No.
All right. So, what advice would you give someone, or what would you share with someone who may have lost their mom at such a young age? 18 months, what's that? Close to 2, so 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would you share with somebody who may be struggling with those same issues, whether they lost their mom or their dad, and may be struggling in that area of parenthood, of losing a parent?
I think it's key to. I'm gonna give you 2 answers. I think it's key to obtain as much information as you possibly can. And the reason why I say that, because in my journey, I can only speak from my experience with grief as a whole. When I am dealing with grief, my foundation, what gives me energy to make it through the journey of grief, are the memories that I have.
Okay.
And that's something that I did not have of my mom. Yeah. I had no memories. I didn't even have the stories because people weren't talking about it. So, and once I identified that that's why I was angry, I started creating a whole story in my head. Like I just started using, because as an only child, you use your imagination a lot. You play with yourself, by yourself, and you create these worlds and you just go into, and so that's what I started doing.
Okay.
And I was like, this is what I'm going to use to comfort me anytime I'm in a situation and I just feel alone and I'm angry about the fact she's no longer here with me.
Okay, so you had your own story of your mom. And okay.
I was just playing my mind, what would she do? What would she say? Yeah.
Okay, I like that. I like that. That's a different spin on it. And you have your own story. That way you don't feel empty.
Yep.
I love that.
Yep.
Let's go back to your marriage. You said that's when you start realizing that you were angry and you start identifying grief. How would you describe how it impacted your marriage as a wife, as a parent?
Definitely a negative impact, because I don't know if you've ever experienced being around someone who's underlying angry and you don't know if today is a day that if they're having a good day or if they're having a bad day or what their response is going to be. And so in our house it became a little tense because he didn't know how to come at me, depending on, because he didn't know what my mood was or what my trigger would be that day, because it could have been something small, and I am taking it out on him when it's really not him.
And what about being a parent?
Being a parent, I want to think to myself, I want to think that by the time the children came along, because I was married 7 years before I had my first.
Okay.
So by the time she came along, I was still trying to successfully manage my emotions. But at the same time, understanding I have this new responsibility and it's not all about me. So I can't wallow. I don't have time. I don't have time to just sit and...
So you separate the two.
Yeah, because I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and then it's Devon.
Okay.
So Devon was on the back burner because now I'm a mom and I have to be present for my child. Um, Based on the conversations that I've had with my oldest, I can say that she felt as if I did not like her. And I think that comes from me not consistently showing love and affection. Okay. Just being present to do what's necessary to get through the day. To be the provider and not necessarily an emotional safe space for her.
Now, do you think that you missed that part because you did not have that part? Like the nurturer? Because what I hear you saying is that your oldest feel like you didn't nurture her enough.
Right.
And so you, the driving force that you know about your dad was he was the provider, right?
Right.
And other people helped raise you.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of impacted being a parent because you didn't necessarily know how to nurture because you didn't have that. Wow. You missed it.
That's amazing. I ain't never thought about it like that.
So
and that may be true. That might be it.
Okay.
Because I didn't have it. I didn't have the example. I didn't have it.
Yeah.
There was no one around me that demonstrated that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what like sitting in our truth and talking about things, and when things unravel, you start putting the pieces together. Yes. Like, oh, wait a minute, I kind of understand me a lot more now.
Yes.
So that would make sense.
That would make sense. Hence the reason why I'm a proponent of extending grace to people, because you just don't know where they're at in life. You don't know what they're dealing with or what life experiences they've had.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Let's jump into Okay, so did you go to therapy?
No.
You did not go to therapy?
A lot of praying, talking to Jesus, and reading my word, and just I was heavy into, just that spiritual connection and just relying on him to anchor me so that I could make my way through that anger. Because I was just like, this is heavy. Yeah.
How would you describe, because you've done a lot of growing, right, in this area. Mm-hmm. And so are you able to identify your triggers, and are you able to identify, because it impacted your marriage, right?
Yes.
All right. So going forward in relationships, are you able to identify those same triggers but able to handle them differently? And if so, are you open? I'm assuming you might be dating. Mm-hmm. Are you open to like sharing certain things that still may be a trigger for you so that other person can understand?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I am one thing that's a trigger for me. If I consider you a friend, if I consider you to be someone who is present in my inner circle, and I reach out to you during a time of need, but don't receive the need. If I feel like you're not
meeting my need,
paying attention to me, or just being receptive and listening to me, that's definitely a trigger. Okay. Like that's, I go back to, why isn't she here? Because I believe if she was here, then I would be okay.
So it's back to, if you don't respond now, I feel alone.
Yes. Because I feel, now that I'm a mom, now that I'm a mom, there is nothing that I would not do for my child.
Yeah.
So, painting that picture in my head that if she was here, I know that she would be here for me. So because I've already set that expectation for her, if someone doesn't meet that and I consider you to be in my inner circle, it's a problem. And I'm spiraling out of control. So I have to kind of center myself and pull myself back in and say, Devon, you don't know what they're dealing with.
Okay. And is that how you handle it? Or do you have a conversation like, let's use me for an example, right?
It depends.
Tamekia, I reached out and I didn't get this response. And,
it depends.
Like, what's the conversation? How does it handle?
Um, Girlfriends, I tend to let them off the hook more so than a partner.
Okay.
If you're my partner, there's going to be a conversation because, I reached out to you or I was trying to express something to you and you weren't really present. And I need you to be present because, I thought this was a partnership.
It's a different level of expectations.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
I would never do that to you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything I have not asked that you want to share?
Is there anything that you have not asked that you want to share?
Mm-hmm.
I think if your scenario is like mine, where you have a parent that has transitioned and a parent that was left behind, and the relationship is not all that you want it to be, extend grace to the one that was left behind. Because grief looks different for everybody. And I didn't realize that until...
I totally agree.
I knew that grief looked different for everybody, but it's something about those parents that we don't see them as individuals and human, and we just see them as Absolutely. Our parents. And so when I begin to look at my dad as a human and someone who has had his own journey, I begin to almost weep because I'm like, I extend grace to so many other people, but I didn't do that for my dad.
Because that's my daddy.
Because that's my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your dad is in a different space because a lot of years later, yes. he's able to talk about it.
And I think it's because he's dealing with his, for lack of a better phrase, he's dealing with his own immortality. Like he's 75. Mm-hmm. So, I think he's looking at life differently.
Okay.
And he's more open. I can ask him anything now. Anything. And he will answer.
Really?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Answer. It is amazing.
Wow.
It's God-given moments, precious moments that I have with him.
Okay. Has he ever shared or do y'all talk about his grief process, the things that he's went through in the grieving process of losing your mom?
Not specifically me asking him questions, but just me listening to him, and letting him talk and letting him share and me reading in between the lines.
Absolutely.
He still goes to visit her grave on a regular.
Really?
Yep. I didn't even know that. I did not even know that.
Wow.
Yep. I went for the first time with him just last year. Yep.
So many years later.
So, just experiences like that with him, along with the communication that he's able to provide now, allows me to know that him losing her at such a young age sent him on a journey that he was not prepared to walk out. And he did the best he could. He did the best that he could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would make sense because that's pretty young.
Yeah, 27.
Yeah, especially when we...
And he didn't, you're talking about a country boy. He didn't know nothing. He just knew how to work the farm. Left Mississippi because he was drafted. So went to the military, ended up getting married and...
Yeah, that would make sense because again, like we said, that generation did not talk.
No.
They didn't really talk about their feelings. And we are moving towards a space to where we're talking a lot more. But that would make sense that he was just hit with losing the woman that he loved. Yeah,
and still loves to this day.
Yeah, it's
because
such a young
when
age.
He talks about her, it's different. I'm like, oh wow, yeah, it's different. Beautiful. It's different.
Oh wow. So when you say that he's a different person, can you elaborate a little bit?
My father has always been to me very stern, strict, um, just black and white.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. Final answer. Don't ask me. Just militant. That's the word I'm going to use. Just militant. And he is no longer that guy. He's just not that guy. I tell my kids all the time, I don't know this man. I said, you have a different person in your grandfather. This is not the man that I grew up with. I'm going to say it again. I knew that he loved me. He showed affection in his own way. And I knew that that was how he loved me. But anything beyond that, you were not going to get. He wasn't going to tell you that he loved you. None of that. He wasn't going to hug you. He didn't kiss you. He was just...
That's why you still miss that nurturing part. Mm-hmm. That all makes sense.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I know... So there's one thing that I know for sure about you, right? I know.
Like wine. What?
I know that you have a passion for women, making sure women who have children have housing.
Yes.
Where does that come from? Do you think it comes from just, like the fact that you lost your mom? Where does it come from? Where did it stem from? Because you are truly passionate about that.
I think I'm passionate about that simply because I do understand that housing is important.
Okay.
Especially owning a home. Mm-hmm. Because it solidifies that, you've accomplished, because we have not always been able to own homes. Mm-hmm. So I know for me, when I purchased my first house, at a young age, I felt like I was an adult and I did something and I own something.
Yeah.
This is mine. No one can take it. So to provide a route, to provide a path for someone to have home ownership, a mother for their child, I think it prepares everyone in the home to be successful in life. Even though my journey has taken me all over the place, the one thing I can always say, I lived in a home. Okay. Always lived in a home. I remember I just asked my father the other day for a picture of the house that I grew up in, that I had. I remembered that house. I don't remember the inside of the house, but I remember the outside of the house and being there with him. Wow. At a young, when I was 5 and 6. I said, I remember that house. It was brown and yellow. It had a chain link fence.
Wow. So the picture of your mom
that I still have.
Yeah, I wish you had it now.
It's huge.
Oh, it's a big picture.
It's a painting, actually.
Oh, is it?
Do you remember back in the day how they would take a portrait and then they would paint around it? That's what I have. So it's in one of them big, huge frames, and I'm still trying to find the perfect spot for her.
When you look at the picture, what do you see?
I see a beautiful woman that was just so happy. She just appears to be happy and at peace with life, with whatever was going on at that moment. My father tells me all the time she was so smart. He's like, she was the smartest woman I knew. Okay.
Oh, wow. Do you ever take moments to talk to the woman that you never actually knew? So meaning, because I heard you say you were spiritual. So do you journal to her? Do you talk to her?
I'm not a journal. I'm horrible at journaling.
Okay.
I actually just talk to people out loud, walking around in my space, and have conversations with them.
Okay.
I find that to be healing and freeing in the moment. Just saying whatever comes to my mind.
Okay.
So now when I think about her, I may say, I miss you. I love you. May talk to her about my kids.
Do they ever share? Because they had their dad's mom as grandma. Do they ever share anything with you as missing the maternal side of a grandparent or grandmother?
No, because well, I don't know why, but they've never voiced it to me.
Okay.
They've met a lot of people on my side of the family. Just yeah, I think because they have their grandfather, and my kids are very content.
Okay.
Like they're not. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe the picture that you have, if you can like snap a photo,
And
maybe you can send it, and maybe we could share it with this episode. I think that would be really dope.
Okay.
So before we wrap up, let me make sure I have asked everything that I want to ask really quick. And I think I have. So before we wrap up, we like to ask fireside questions, right?
Okay.
So we are a community that believes in that encourages our people to grow in particular areas, to be their best selves, and also to exercise faith over fear.
Okay.
So the question's gonna come from one of those things, okay?
I'm like, I feel like you setting me up.
Okay. So it's actually two. And we also believe in affirmations. Okay. So before we close out, we're going to get an audience an affirmation that you either use every day in your life or something that just may come to your mind right now that you want to share with the audience. So give us an affirmation. So
my affirmation that I go to all the time as a woman, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Always. Always. That's me. I think it's hard being a Black woman.
Absolutely.
But I take pride in being, I wouldn't want to be anything else. I love being a Black woman. So that's the affirmation that I go to all the time.
Okay. Do you have it written somewhere or you just tell yourself?
No, I just tell myself that.
Okay.
I'm still working on the tattoo, but it's coming.
Okay, tattoo, yes! Come on, tattoo!
I'm still working on the tattoo.
Where are you getting the tattoo placed at?
On my thigh.
Okay.
I'm still trying to design it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on, tattoo. I love it.
Wonderfully, yes.
I love it. And you know what? You're right. Like, we don't talk enough about it. And I seen a meme that said the most toughest but most beautiful job is being a Black woman.
Yes. Yes. Raising the kids, sitting in the meeting. Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Okay. So the next one is, can you name a book or a self-help tip that has helped you, that you can give our audience, that has helped you grow in this grief journey?
Well, I think I'm going to just go back to the basic. I mean, because at the start of the journey, in the midst of the journey, the Bible was key for me.
Okay.
At that time, because this was before the kids came. So at that time, I was going to the church, listening to what the pastor was preaching, and just looking for answers. For me, that's where it started. Because I remember as a little girl sitting on the pew next to my grandparents, and so I just had to go back to what I knew, my foundation. And that was it, the Word of God. That's where, for me, that's where it all started.
Okay. Well, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you. Thank you so much. It's really hard for us to be in a space to share our stories, to be vulnerable, and understand that, we can walk through the pain, and even though it's pain, like, we can also just smile and be happy in it too. Like, they coexist together. And so I just want to say thank you for saying yes to coming on to the podcast, sharing your story, because there's somebody else out there, right, that has lost their parents at a very young age, and that's walking through these
And
footsteps
feel
of
alone.
journey and don't know why they may feel a certain way, why they angry, and stuff is just misplaced and all over.
Yeah.
So I want to say thank you, because somebody's going to hear this and they're going to be like, that's me.
I wish.
So again, thank you so much, Devon, for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you providing this safe platform for us to share and connect, and yeah,
I appreciate you. So we are getting ready to close out. I hope you all enjoyed Happy Hour Conversations. Again, I am your girl, Tamekia.
Devon.
And we'll see you all on the next episode. Make sure you tune in to our IG page and YouTube.
Have a great one.
Peace. Thank you for joining the Happy Hour Conversations podcast, where we discuss heavy, emotional, and raw conversations sprinkled with laughter. Be sure to follow us on IG at Happy Hour Conversations Podcast, and also subscribe to the podcast to stay tuned to our weekly Happy Hour Conversations. I am your girl, Tamekia, our moon, and I'll see you next week.